Hey there, it's Lara here again with the weekly Witchy Wednesday video, this time for the week of April 25th to May 2nd, 2018. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it. If this is your first time here, then these videos come out once a week and they are about the relevant astrology that's impacting us all, and sort of what we can expect and how to best deal with the energy, that kind of thing. And hopefully when you're here you learn a little something as well. And if you want to keep getting these videos, you don't want to miss them, then please do subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button below, and if you want to get notified when a new video comes out, then you just click the little bell, and that way you will get a notification whenever I release a new video. And I had done those two videos on Chiron a little while back that are getting great response, and I'm in the process of doing one on Uranus transiting into Taurus, which is happening in mid-May. So that's sort of another big shift that will impact us. And of course, if you're interested in getting a personal reading with me, then just follow the link below over to my website and you can check out what's on offer there and order straight from there. And if you have any questions, please do reach out. So you might be tired of hearing me say, that things are pretty intense, but things are pretty intense. So, this is fact of the matter. This is where we're at. And, but it's, as I've said in past videos, it's not all bad. It's a matter of really being conscious, right? Of the energy and how to best harness it and navigate it. And it's all moving towards, some powerful, lasting change, especially if we use it in the right way, right? And if we're aware of it. And, if you're here watching these videos, then you already have some awareness of, the way things work, right, in the world, and that it's really ultimately up to us to be awake and to witness what's happening in the world and how we're responding to it. And we have the free will and the power and control. We get to choose how we respond, always. And I always tell people that when I do readings for them, that regardless of, the energy and the way that the astrology is playing out for us, which whether you choose to believe it or not, has an impact on us, right? Here on Earth and in our human form. But it can give us the quality of energy. It can give us, astrology can give us the probabilities and the possibilities, but we always have free will. And the key to exercising that free will is to being aware of what's going on. And so, and how we're feeling about it, and how, how we're responding to it. We get to choose. So there are some very significant things happening again this week, and I'm going to try to sort of break it down piece by piece and talk to you about, how this might be playing out for you and for us as a collective. So just, some basics. First of all, and I've got my notes here, right? I always have a page of notes so that I don't forget to tell you something. First of all, the moon is in Virgo today. Virgo is an earth sign, so we might be, doing some practical stuff and being in service in some way. We may be taking care of the details and being sort of emotionally more grounded in some way. Although there are other things that factor in there. So if you're not feeling so emotionally grounded, Don't worry. So then the moon is going to move into Libra on Thursday, and then Scorpio on Sunday, which is a full moon in Scorpio. Intense. I'm going to talk about that in more detail. And then after that, it will move into Sagittarius on Tuesday. So again, I've mentioned before, if you follow the moon cycles, the moon moves very quickly, right? It changes signs every 2.5 days. And so if you're really tuned in, you can kind of feel those shifts on an emotional level in particular, because the moon rules our emotions, right? And so you may be feeling that, and it can kind of help you make sense of things, or plan even, your activities, if you pay attention to the moon cycles. But the moon moves so quickly that it's hard to go into all the details in these forecasts. And so I tend to just focus on the, especially the full moons and the new moons here. Okay, so that full moon is happening, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute in more detail. We had Saturn go retrograde last week, right? And I talked about that in last week's Witchy Wednesday video. So if you want to hear a little bit more about that, you can go back and watch that. But basically, that's kind of Saturn retrograding in Capricorn. We're revisiting, revising, reviewing our commitments largely, and maybe having to make some hard choices, and maybe having to work through some obstacles and that kind of thing. And of course, that's always, that's wherever Capricorn. It's important to know this. If you're interested in sort of understanding how this plays out for you more personally, and like, what does this mean for me kind of thing, it's important to know where the signs fall in your particular chart, right? And of course, if you have a personal reading done with me, then I give you your chart and I point that out to you, so that when you are, learning or watching these videos, then you'll have a better grasp on that. So if you know where Capricorn falls in your own personal chart, which house it falls in, then you'll have a better idea of the life area that these energies are playing out for you in, like the Saturn retrograde, the Pluto-Mars conjunction that I'm about to talk about shortly as well. The Scorpio full moon, where does Scorpio fall in your chart? And that's the area that you will really feel the intensity of the full moon the most. So, and then another thing that's happening, this just happened yesterday. Yes, yesterday, is Venus moved from Taurus into Gemini. And so when Venus is in Gemini, this can make us, quite social, and like more communicative, but on perhaps a bit of a surface level, or more superficial level kind of thing. It can also make us it can make us very animated and fun loving, but we can also be a little bit more fickle in terms of our desires and that kind of thing. And maybe a bit distracted as well in that department. And it can also, because Gemini is about communication and words and ideas and logic and intellect, that kind of thing, it can also make us express ourselves, in words, express our sort of desires, right? In words. So that's happening. But I really want to focus on some of the big events here. I'm going to show you the chart for that I drew up for today. And these kinds of, there's some things here that will be playing out, that continue to play out over the week. But so we've got the sun here in Taurus, right? We've got Uranus at the very end of Aries, and that I'm going to talk about in a future video. In fact, I'm going to make a whole separate video on that, because it's significant, as I mentioned, because it's about to shift into Taurus. Chiron is just shifted into Aries. You can find out more about that on the other videos that I did. Mercury's still in Aries. Neptune's in Pisces for a long, long time here. South node in Aquarius, north node in Leo. there's the moon, right? And the moon is in Virgo, as I mentioned. It's going to shift signs and eventually end up in Scorpio on Sunday for that full moon. We've got Jupiter retrograde in Scorpio, and here's all this energy in Capricorn. So Saturn in Capricorn, Mars and Pluto right beside each other. We call that conjunct in Capricorn. Okay, so that's what the chart looks like for today. Now, some of the planets, as I mentioned, they move more quickly, like the moon, and Mercury sort of move along through the signs faster. But then planets like Pluto and Neptune, and Uranus, they take quite a longer time to move through the signs. And then, Venus, Saturn, those are sort of the in-between ones. And so one of the things I really want to talk to you about is this. First off, Pluto retrograde. So Pluto has gone retrograde. It's joined Saturn retrograde in Capricorn. And that just happened on the 22nd or 23rd, sort of depending on where you live in the world, right? And so this is a regular event, Pluto going retrograde, that happens every year for about 5 months. But what will sort of flavor the retrograde is whatever sign Pluto is in, or whatever planet is going retrograde. Whatever sign it's going retrograde in will flavor, the energy. And obviously, wherever that sign falls in your chart will show you where this really kind of impacts you the most, or plays out for you, right? The most, what life area. And so wherever you have Capricorn in your chart will be, once again, where these energies are felt the strongest. So Pluto retrograde is really a time to reflect and review on issues of power and control in our lives. And it's a good time to kind of face our demons in a way, and to look at our shadows, and perhaps look at sort of maybe behaviors, obsessions, compulsions, things we're clinging to that are really not that good for us, or even things that are buried deep in our psyche, or maybe things that we keep secret from other people. It's a good time to kind of look at those things and bring them up for review, and release and transformation, right? Pluto is about, release, transformation, and power and control largely. So, it's a good time to sort of bring some of those issues up. And if we don't bring them up ourselves, then life has a way of bringing them up for us, right? Like external circumstances can happen that force us to go there. And so it's always best to kind of take control of the situation yourself as best you can, and kind of choose to go there yourself. And so a lot of the energy to me that's happening right now, including this Pluto retrograde, if you're a Harry Potter fan, it's, it reminds me of, it's like destroying Horcruxes, right? And if you don't know what that means, then maybe Google it. But so it's kind of like that sort of, searching for those things that really need to be burned up and let go of, because they're really not doing us much good. So, and on a sort of a more global scale, we can see these kinds of things coming to the surface, right? And that's an ongoing theme, as I spoke about at the beginning of the year, with Jupiter retrograde, or Jupiter in Scorpio, which is now retrograde in Scorpio. But Scorpio is the sign that is ruled by the planet Pluto, right? So they share similar energies and qualities. Okay, so the other thing that's happening in Capricorn is Mars is conjuncting Pluto, right? So they are bumping up against each other, and there's this like kind of conversation that's happening, this blending of these energies, right? And so you heard me just talk about Pluto and how Pluto is largely an energy of power and control dynamics, of like repressed emotions, deep psychological, um, issues or things that we may have kind of really stuffed down. It's about intensity, um, uncovering of secrets. It's about hidden knowledge, like the occult. That's all occult means, right? It means hidden knowledge. So it has a connection to that as well. And Mars as an energy is quite dynamic. It's quite inspired, action oriented, warrior like, but can also be very aggressive and explosive, and implosive even. And so, we may see with this conjunction, and we are seeing this out in the world, right? I'm going to speak to a couple of events I know of that sort of illustrate this, so that you can get an idea. But it can go one of two ways. And again, the choice is really ours. It's in how we choose to deal with these energies and navigate them, right? So it can be this explosive energy where we get just frustrated and fed up, and we blow up, and we do something destructive towards others or towards ourselves even. um, and we act out in impulsive, aggressive ways because we've just had it and the energy needs to go somewhere. And because this is happening in Capricorn, it's kind of like the structures and the rules and regulations and the traditions and the foundations are being shaken here, right, by this energy. And so, and the patriarchy as well, right? Capricorn sort of represents the patriarchy. And so, we can see on a global scale. I'm going to give you a couple of examples, very recent ones. I'm Canadian, right? So I live in Canada, and just a few days ago, there was this awful event that happened in Toronto where this guy in a rental van just plowed through a group of pedestrians on Yonge Street in Toronto and killed many and maimed many. And, as the details have unfolded, we kind of, see that this was somebody who was basically, a woman hater, to put it simply. And, because, the understanding is that, he was jilted or something. And so this is how he chose to deal. And of course, whenever something like a big event like this happens, we're so quick to start, following all the news stories. And we have to really be discerning with where we get our information and take everything with a grain of salt, right? But as we understand it, this is sort of how this played out. And so this speaks to the astrology, or illustrates the astrology on many levels, and particularly this current Mars Pluto conjunction, right? Of this lashing out, aggressive, really masculine, destructive energy. And then I just this morning heard about a shooting in Dallas where two police officers were killed, and I think a civilian, or the civilian is injured anyways, at a Home Depot, right? And so these are just two examples, but you could see this kind of thing going out, playing out all over the place. And the whole issues of power and control. There's a lot of dynamic going on this year in terms of the masculine and the feminine, and I've addressed that in other videos as well. So, but, on a personal level, this can look like really lashing out or being on the receiving end of somebody else's lashing out, and, destructive behavior and sort of explosive kind of behavior. Or it can be, which is, the preference, obviously, it can be harnessing this powerful, yang inspired, instinctual, warrior-like energy to get stuff done, to lay the foundations, to take action, to build something long-lasting, to transform, the existing, to transform the status quo in our lives, kind of thing. Our limits can be really tested right now. Obstacles can be put in our way. We can feel really sort of fed up and done and ready to just lose it. But if we try to harness that energy, and do something productive, it can be really, really powerful, right? So just be mindful of that. And, we may have to sort of soldier on and soldier through for a while yet until this passes. But, try to operate at the higher octave of this energy, right? So I'm going to give you a personal example because that's one way I like to sort of relate things to you, and I think it makes it kind of real. I've talked in a couple of past videos about how I personally have Capricorn in my 5th house in my chart, right? So this is the area, once again, of creative output, of children, of sort of the fun things in life, of love given, and it can be like sort of romantic relationships as well can fall in that house. But I'm experiencing all of this energy, right? The Pluto Mars conjunction and the Saturn in there, and the Pluto retrograde happening, the Saturn retrograde. This is all going on in my 5th house, and so I have I committed to volunteering for a play locally, and my kids are doing it too. See, 5th house, right? So creative output, and my kids are involved, and it's been a pretty intense experience. Pluto, it's been a lot of hard work. Saturn, a lot more work than I anticipated. Lots of frustration is coming up, right? Mars, Pluto. And I'm in this rock and a hard place where I've made this commitment and I can't back out of it because other people are relying on me too. And I'm just not that person, right? I'm like, do what you say you're going to do. That's who I am. And come hell or high water, I'm going to stick to my guns and stick to my commitment unless it's absolutely not possible to do that. So here's how this is playing out in my own life. And this is going to continue for the next few weeks because, this is how long this commitment lasts for. And so I'm having to really find myself, taking a lot of deep breaths and just putting my nose to the grindstone and doing my best and trying not to lose my shit kind of thing. Um, you know, and to try to learn from the experience. And you know, it's intense, it's complicated. It's on some level oddly satisfying in some ways too, but it's a commitment, like, you know, that I won't make again. Um, Frankly, you know, if I was being paid for this, it would be different, right? But there is not a lot of return on investment, shall we say, happening. And so I'm finding myself, there's a lot of energetic output right now, and it's I'm hoping that, you know, at some point it will pay off in some way, because you know, it is in this sign of Capricorn, which is like the long, in it for the long haul, long term commitment. You know, Saturn being involved, it's like you have to do the hard work, but eventually, if you do the hard work, there will be a payoff, right? And so I'm trying to look at it like that. But you can see how this is playing out for me personally in my own life. So again, wherever Capricorn falls for you in your chart, um, you know, it'll be that flavor, right? Where this is happening and how this is playing out for you. And so let me just give you another example. So, for example, if you have Capricorn in your second house, this can be a lot of intensity around your personal resources, your self worth, money matters, your feelings of stability and security can be being impacted hugely right now. And being, you know, up for review and transformation, and a lot of there could be some sort of headbutting and a lot of hard work and frustration and obstacles and action and inspiration, you know, happening right now. So that's if it's in your second house, right? So you can kind of see how that works. All right, so I'm going to leave that there. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about is the full moon that's happening in Scorpio on the 29th, which is on Sunday here. And so again, it's more of this Plutonian energy. It's this intensity, right? Scorpio is an intense sign. It's a water sign, intense emotions. I relate to this energy very much of a Scorpio moon because I have my moon in Scorpio in my birth chart, right? So this is very familiar to me. And it's just sort of everything is amplified right now. So a full moon is always, again, when the sun and the moon are opposite each other in the sky, and it requires a balancing of those two energies wherever the sun and the moon fall. And so the moon is in Scorpio, and the sun is in Taurus right across the chart, right? And so Taurus is this fixed energy. Scorpio is also a fixed sign, right? A sort of a, a stubborn, stable, hard to budge sign. That's the energy that's involved. And Taurus is connected to our those second house things I just spoke about, actually, our resources, our sense of security and stability, our self-worth, our what we value, our material world as well, and the world that we experience through our five senses, right? And then Scorpio is about transformation. It's about getting to the bottom of things. It's about our deep psychological attachments. It's about this whole cycle of um, death and rebirth, not necessarily in the literal sense, but like phoenix rising from the ashes, you know, caterpillar into butterfly kind of energy, right? Um, and so there is this need for balance between those two energies with a full moon. And a full moon is always also about things being illuminated or coming to light, or about a final culmination of something. And so you know, Taurus is like more about simplicity. Scorpio is more about complexity, right? How do we balance these things? The outer obvious material, the inner mystical, secretive kind of thing. And so this may be a time when our deep, intense emotions rise to the surface, to be dealt with, perhaps to be spoken, to be shared, um, and to be ultimately, for transformative purposes. And, just to speak to Moon in Scorpio energy from a personal standpoint, again, because I have this aspect in my own birth chart, right? There is such intensity of feeling, of emotion, that it can be overwhelming at times, like, and this noticing of the undercurrent of people's energies, of the undercurrent in life, of what's going on around you. um this is something that I experience regularly, right? And this can make truthfully, this can make people with this aspect natally, like with Moon and Scorpio, hard to trust because they're so intensely aware of all of the undercurrent. Um, so, meaning that they have a hard time trusting other people and situations and that kind of thing. That can happen, right? And um, it can also be this constant obsessive need to just dig deeper and deeper and deeper, and to really want to get to the bottom of things, and to just kind of like, you know purge it all, purge the nastiness, purge the poison right out of the system, right? But it can be, um, it's a very powerful energy as well, because it can be quite transformative, right? So it's hard to articulate. You can kind of, I'm sure, notice that I'm kind of searching for words and that kind of thing, and how to express this, because it can be quite, it's a feeling energy, so it can be hard to articulate that sometimes. So, you know, I guess just to leave it on sort of a more positive note, this Scorpio full moon is in a conversation with Saturn that's called a sextile. So, which is a conversation, like, it's opportunistic. So there's a good opportunity here for us, right? To kind of deal with our intense emotions, and put them to good use, put them to practical use. So if these things are coming up for us, what are we going to do about it now? Are we just going to like blow? Are we going to be destructive, and aggressive, to other people or towards ourselves? Or are we going to acknowledge that those emotions are trying to send us a message? And are we going to be willing to hear that message and then do something constructive and practical and useful and productive with it, right? So I leave you with that. Hang in there. I'd love to know how things are going for you. I would really love it if you would subscribe to the channel and comment, give me feedback, give the video a thumbs up if it resonated with you. Share it, of course, with others. And stay tuned for that video on Uranus moving into Taurus. I'm hoping to get that out by the end of this week. Fingers crossed. Okay, so take care, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.